pumped with hormones, pumped with copious amounts of unsolicited advice, information, and pumping our tired tooties like cows.
Pumped is a podcast that explores the fourth trimester and life thereafter, sharing every warrior woman's journey, from the hurdles of feeding to poop and pointy questions.
Join us for this wild ride of bleeding bums, burning nipples, and leaky bladders.
Hold on to your maxi pads, ladies. Evolve with us. Let's share it all. Just a quick heads up, this episode discusses mental health issues. Some of you may find this helpful, but if you are requiring some assistance, we've included some links in our show notes.
Before we begin, we acknowledge the traditional custodians and owners of the land, bodies, and airways we are recording and editing from, the Dharawal people and the Arakwal people. Pump is also recorded on Gadigal land.
Oh my gosh, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. And
I'm excited.
We're seeing our longtime friend. It's very
exciting.
exciting.
I feel like I'm catching up with girlfriends, but before we get into that, we need to do our pump up and pump down. Hey,
Yep.
What have you got for me?
My pump up for the week is that do I have one? I guess
Come on.
Look, I guess for me it's that Jude is really having good sleeps. He's sleeping through now. He goes to bed at 7:30 and wakes up at 6:30, touch wood. So I'm getting my sleep back, which is, I'm sorry to say this, Bianca, I'm not trying to trigger you.
I'm like smiling and like my lazy eyes twitching and I'm like, that's so good.
Yeah. And another good thing is that my mum is potentially coming down very soon. So
that's awesome.
Hopefully my sister's due to have a baby on the 21st of December. So I'm hoping that my mum is going to shoot down before and then we all shoot back up and be together for Christmas. So
that'll be fab.
That's the dream. So that's the pump up. What's your down?
My down is just I'm feeling really crap lately. Oh, that's so heavy. No, not emotionally. I'm super dizzy all the time. And I'll be at work or whatever, and I'm like standing in front of a class, like, oh, I'm gonna faint. So I need to go and get that sorted. I think it's I'm not taking care of my nutritional needs.
Is this because we've just listened to we've had a podcast with a dietitian? And
no, it's just totally random. What are you talking about? Yeah, so I need to go and sort that out. I need a blood test. I'm sick of feeling dizzy. It's actually super scary when I'm driving in the car too, because sometimes I feel a bit faint, and then I feel like probably not the best thing to be feeling when you're driving, especially with Zali in the car. So don't take her away from me. I'm a good mum, I swear.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll sort that out.
Please.
Yes.
And let's now acknowledge this
oh my gosh, this stunning girl that's like down below.
Like
our Rachael Calvert, our friend Rachael Calvert. She's an old uni pal of ours. Hello.
I was trying to like laugh quietly because I didn't know if you're going to introduce me, so I'm just nodding and smiling.
No, you just
like
sit
an idiot.
there.
If you want your introduction, Bianca has one for you.
I'm going to say you're going to let me talk you up, okay? So Rachael is an old uni pal. She got kicked out of our movement class. Okay, that's where we feel our bodies, whatever. At uni, she's Rachael. I'm going to say you're beautiful, honest, articulate, and extremely intelligent mama to the gorgeous baby girl Murphy. She's so cute, and she is the founder and creator of MARVELL LANE swim and lingerie for fuller busty women. All her busty friends, I friggin' love it. I don't have big boobies, but I still watch videos.
Neither.
Oh, I can't believe neither of you have big buzzies. I wish I could just send you some of my stuff to wear whilst you're recording.
I know. That'd be a sight for sore eyes. Imagine how all of our old students that we taught just like, have you seen Miss Flowers?
Up.
Yeah.
I might just get some chicken fillets and shove them in there like the old school days.
Oh God. Wow, you make me sound more accomplished than what I am, but thank you very much. I'll take it.
Well, before we begin diving into your MARVELL LANE, have you thought about a funny motherhood story for us?
It's funny, like things happen all the time. And I'd say yes, it didn't happen to me, but it happened to Dave. And when Murphy was little, Mum and I were like down in the kitchen preparing dinner, and Dave does bath time with Murphy. That's kind of their thing. Yeah. And all we hear is, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So I dropped the knife and run down to, you know, Murphy's room, and he hadn't even bathed her yet. He was undressing her and she pooed. And you know, when they're little and it just shoots out like a rocket. So it hit him, skidded across the sheets, but he picked her up because he was like, oh, I'll just take her straight to the bath. But it's like, and he's like, oh my God. I'm like, put it down. And like, you know, when they're little and their poos are small, this was like the world's longest rocket poo.
Of course it was.
And we're scrubbing the, you know, the carpet. My mum's laughing at us. The carpet's stained with that mustard color. Like
carpet. That's not
yummy,
but very funny.
I love that you go.
No, go.
Oh, I love that you talk about my
poo.
cup is full. My cup is full.
Yeah, look, I thought you'd be happy with the poo story in there, Hayes.
Yeah, always. So thank you.
Well, Rach, given that this potty is entitled Pumped, we need to know, are you pumping? Have you ever pumped? What's the go?
Yes. So Murphy is breastfed, but I am also pumping. I sadly had to go back to work very quickly, just with manufacturing timelines. So I pretty much pumped though from day 4, and Dave was giving her a bottle like at about the 5 a.m. feed, not very consistent, just to give me like 3 hours of unbroken sleep.
Yeah.
So I've always pumped, and I'm still pumping now because I also, well, up until recently, today, had a carer for Murphy who also, so Murphy takes a bottle. So I do pump to try and keep that as breast milk, but I also top up with formula as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you have a specific pump that you use? Because obviously you've got these delicious boobies.
Oh my God, I know. You know, it's so funny. These boobies are enormous for anyone playing along at home. So I have massive boobies, which is why I've started my business, MARVELL LANE. And I went from like an 8G, so they were already big, and I'm currently at an 8HH, 8J for my boob size. Like
A, B, C, D, E, F. Oh my God.
Just keep going, because it's like double F, double G, double H in between all of those as well. It's so Anyway, I know I was actually so paranoid about how big my boobs are going to get, because it's genetic in my family, right? That even I really wanted to breastfeed, but I was so paranoid about how big that they were going to get that I'd only pretty much told Dave, although I'd told other people, I'm like, just so you know, I might not breastfeed, because I just didn't want it to get so big. I didn't want to get back to a point of hating my boobs again. And it's been so far since I've been that way, right? So I had all these bottles squirreled away in my cupboard because I thought I might just skip breastfeeding altogether. And I was a bit embarrassed about that I was just going straight to that, but there's a bit of boob relation there. But anyway, back to your point you are making. My sister Biddy sent me this little pump called Spectra, the Spectra brand, and they're like a hospital grade one. It's fantastic. It's a little pocket rocket. It's fantastic. So that's what I use. It does the job.
Yeah, I use that too. I went through, that was they're the best. Spectra, if you're listening, we love you.
Yes. Spectra is the bomb. So that's what I use for the pumping that I do. Not that it makes it pumping any easier, because that is a slog. So people who exclusively like breast, pump like you did, Hayes, my God, I have nothing but extreme respect.
Yeah,
it's full on. Yeah, it's crazy. So but good on you for doing it.
Thanks, darling. Yeah, well, it's over now. I've weaned, but thank goodness. As much as he got 4 months worth, so that's a win.
Huge win.
Speaking of boobies and all things big and busty, can you tell us what led you to kind of birth, and I'm going to use that as a pun, birth MARVELL LANE? What led you to this?
Your first baby.
Yes, I know. So I've always had big boobs, and my sisters have big boobies too. So does my mom. And I used to really, they used to really annoy me. I'm over that now. I turned them into my business and it's fine. And so when I moved to Byron Bay about nearly 6 years ago, I had one bikini top that I was wearing. I hated this bikini top, but it's the only one that fit me. And I was wearing it like twice a day. And then it just, like, I wore it out, like it broke. And then I tried to buy a swim top here in town and there weren't any. So I don't think there's anything unusual about my body shape. I mean, I just have big boobs. I have a small back and a fuller bust, you know, and that's many women. And I couldn't believe that as someone who loved fashion and was swimming this much, I couldn't just find nice swimwear. So then I went to Maya in Brisbane, which is near to here, and the one top they had was on a back shelf. I was on my hands and knees getting the one that I needed at the back, and it was just really shameful. It was horrible. I paid a lot of money for it. It was just, it didn't represent me and made me feel really crappy about myself. And so I was between jobs here in Byron. I was I had another business, and my husband Dave said, why don't you just stop whinging about it and do something about it, you know? And I had a bit of time, so I literally went and bought like some Faber-Castell pens and some pencils and a sketchbook, and I just drew out these women's bodies, photocopied those and stuck them through the book and started drawing my designs. And I just started Googling and researching and asking questions. And very long story short, that's how MARVELL LANE was, you know, born. I was able to do stuff that I would like to wear. It was a little bit sexy, didn't make me feel shame, didn't make me feel like I needed to cover up, but it was also supportive. So that's how MARVELL LANE came to life about 4 years ago.
I love, and your stuff is just gorgeous. Like, I love it.
You.
I look at it like I'm the only one in my family that doesn't have the big boobies. So my sister and my cousin have your swimmers. They bought them, and they're just stunning. And they
I find
feel
that so
good.
cool.
Yeah, like the material, everything's gorgeous.
Good. Well, all the material, B, you'll like this, is made in Italy.
Well, I do like that.
Stop it.
That's why it's good quality, right?
Yeah, maybe we should all do a trip there and just, you know, look for some product. And
why are we going, Hayes? We don't even have to.
We'll podcast. We'll podcast every episode.
We'll do a journey with you. Oh, well, right. Just taking a little side step to, well, hey, we've gone from your first baby.
Yeah.
Your second baby, little Miss Murphy. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about, like, it's totally up to you. You can touch on your birth or the journey to that, and maybe lead into your breastfeeding journey, because you said you were breastfeeding with Murphy. So however you want to go about it.
Yeah, so long story short, it took us 7 years to get Murphy. We tried for a very, very, very long time.
That's a long
to have
time.
her. It is a long time. So we did lots of IVF, lots of embryo transfers, and one finally stuck, which was really nice, obviously, because I've got a little Murphy now.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you guys have questions about that, you can ask me about that, but just jump in wherever you want. And then so yeah, we I
do want to ask you about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you want to know?
Just how you, because I mean, I didn't go through IVF, but I was on a particular, I've mentioned this in the first episode, but a particular fertility drug that's kind of like one of the steps before that, if I had to go down that route. But I found that like really taxing emotionally, and basically became like a very angry, like sad person throughout that period of time. How did you kind of just manage that? Because 7 years, that was only a year and a half, me, but like 7 years is a very long time, and I don't feel comfortable sharing, like, but how did you kind of cope with that?
Well, with extreme depression and medication. No, I don't want to make a joke of that. It's a good question, B, because, you know, all the different hormones really mess with your emotions and your mood state. And I was already a depressive person, and I'd had lots happen in my life just prior to starting the IVF, with the death of my youngest brother, actually. And so we added all of that in to a combination of doing IVF, grief, and my own depression. And it was horrible. In fact, I would have done probably more IVF than what I had done, but I knew that every time I would get onto the hormones, it would trigger my depression into like I would be in deep blackness, and suicide ideation was common, can be common for me because I am a bit of a depressive. And yeah, so good question. Diet, exercise and medication for me actually to control my depression. So I'm not surprised you had issues.
Yeah. And I haven't had depression, but I'm very anxious. So like I kind of went into that sort of headspace as well, like that obsessive kind of headspace about all of it. So yeah, coupled with everything you said, I can totally empathize with you and how hard that would have been, because especially too then if you're seeing other people around you having babies and things like that, it's very, very hard to stay positive. And it's almost like you're outside of yourself, like you know that it's the hormones making it worse, but you can't control how you feel at all.
Yeah, totally. I get exactly what you're saying. And, you know, like you go through different stages in life as well. I mean, I come from an extremely fertile family. People get looked at and they fall pregnant in my family. And that wasn't happening for us for whatever reason. And, you know, and the other thing is stages of life, right? You know, I've got some girlfriends who are single, but most people are married off or with children. And when we moved to Byron, I was married. A lot of friends are starting to have children. And trying to make friends was with, you know, other people who are at the same life stage as you, but people with children mostly socialize with other people who just have children. And I don't say that in a disparaging or wanting to be critical way, but when you've endured, you know, going from 27 right up to 32 or nearly 33 when I had Murphy, you know, they're critical life stages that I went through that I didn't make any really good, really close friends that you do through your mum stage of life, because that wasn't happening for me. So, there's lots of different complex social things that then come into it when you're watching everyone's lives move on and go past. So, I mean, I didn't,
Thank you for being so honest about it, because,
we've actually had requests too from I've had certain people reach out and say, can you please talk to IVF? So I'm so you know,
well, if you have any specific questions, ask away. I'm happy to answer.
Well, how did you go then when you did fall pregnant? Were you so anxious? Just like, you know, because there's certain milestones that you need to reach, you know, the 12 weeks and then this and that. Like, were you highly anxious, or did you have to go off your medication? Like, how did you navigate all of that when?
Yep, good question. So I haven't been on my antidepressants for actually 2 years now, which is pretty good. I use them. With my particular type of depression, I ebb and flow with my antidepressants. I use them to get me out of my lulls, back into the exercise, back into the diet and whatever, and then everything flows from there. And being busy is good for me. So, but with my IV, I never particularly became obsessive about mine. I know other people can. For me, I just sort of I didn't really, because I just think it's my personality type. But I did get negative. Like, not negative, nothing's going to work, you know, like I've got a couple of friends who have fallen pregnant on the first rounds of IVF each time. And how someone else works with IVF is absolutely no reflection on how IVF is going to work for you at all, because your individual fertility needs or issues are just that, they're individual. So there's so many different factors. So I didn't really get too obsessive, but I certainly, actually by the end of it, I was like, I'm not going to bother with the special diet. I'm not going to bother with, you know, being so strict on, you know, cutting out alcohol out of my life for 6 months prior to doing IVF. Because, you know, for me by this stage, it had been 6 years of my life being dictated to, or just not participating because you're just trying to focus on having this baby. And so I didn't take that approach after the first couple of years, because it wasn't good for my mental health. And I'm sure there's fertility specialists going, you should, listening to this, that we're going, you should be on a good diet, you should be doing this. But sometimes for me, I had to actually look after my mental health first, and I didn't become fixated on anything. And I've actually made a point of not becoming fixated. So when you were saying before about anxiety, I'm not necessarily an anxious person. So my brain didn't ruminate and get stuck on that sort of, you know, the patterns that your brain gets with anxiety. That didn't happen for me personally. So I think a lot of it comes down to personality and how you individually respond.
Well, Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good to talk about it, because as we've said in previous episodes, I mean, you think, you're saying you came from a very fertile family, same. Like, I think my mum looked at my dad and felt pregnant, but like so I always thought that was going to be the same for me, which is probably like something that you thought as well, coming from a family like that. So it's important to talk about it, because I didn't know that it could be this hard until I tried.
Yes.
And then I was like, surely I'm the only one. This is so unfair. But then, you talk to everybody else, and most people do have trouble.
People are really surprised when I even mention it, because they don't realize how common it is that people do have assistance in whatever way, whether it's starting on what's the medication called again, B? The
Letrozole. Or it was called Clomid, but Letrozole's a newie one, I think.
Yeah, they're actually different. I've taken both of them.
Oh, okay.
But they do the same thing. They regulate your cycle and make sure you ovulate month to month. But lots and lots of people, because people don't understand just how common endometriosis and polycystic ovaries are as well. And they can affect whether you're ovulating monthly. And we're just talking about women's issues. We're not talking about the fact that there's actually 50% of the problem is male.
Yeah.
And so everyone literally has different problems within their own relationship as to what's going to what you should do, girls, is if you have people wanting to know about IVF stuff, is you should put a question box in your Instagram and get people to ask the specific questions they want answered. And I'm happy to, if you just have a fire away questions at me at a future date, I'm happy to answer like the exact things they want to know.
That'd be so helpful. Thanks, babe. That would be very helpful.
That would help a lot of women that have been reaching out, so we will do that in the future,
and to be prepared.
Well,
what about sorry, you go, Hayes.
I was just going to say, so when you got to the birth, we obviously want to get primarily to the 4th trimester, but do you want to kind of give us the cliff notes of your
notes of the birth,
cliff notes of the birth, like, or an image, or like a memory, or when you left the hospital, for example, like how did that feel?
Oh my God, how weird is it when they give you your baby and you get to walk out of the hospital and there's no nurse stopping you at the elevator going, where are you going?
I know that. I will never forget that feeling either.
Dave and I were like waving at the nurses. We were over the elevator and at the front desk, and they're waving by, and we're like, holy shit. Then we walk down to the car. No one checks if we can clip our baby into the car seat properly.
You're on your own.
Like, you're on your own.
You're like, aren't you guys coming?
Totally. So I think that's really weird. And we laughed about that. Even as it was happening, we were like, how weird is this? Okay, so this is our baby now. Yeah. So, no, my birth was relatively good. I mean, you hear so much about birth trauma these days, and my mum's a midwife, and I also come from a very big family, and so much of what mum has always said and we've always known is just healthy baby, healthy mum. And what does that mean though? And I think she's noticed a rise in birth trauma happening, and I used inverted commas there because people have turned birth into an experience,
right?
Which is and I did all the calm birth classes, and birth is can be beautiful, and I loved you girls talking about you both having done something similar, hypnobirth or calm birth, and 2 very different experiences. But this is what aside from too much intervention in birth, which my mum agrees happens, she said at the other end, people have also become fixated on the fact that they don't want any intervention at all. But infant and maternal mortality used to be a major thing.
Yes.
And it still is. So she said this demonization that people have, not demonization, but this fixation they get that if there's been intervention at all and they have trauma over this, she's finding a lot of women now are no longer looking at that intervention as life-saving and wonderful.
It's like a failure.
If they're taking it as a personal physical failure.
Yeah.
And that makes me so sad for women because, I ended up having a cesarean in the end. It's a pretty wild ride to get there. And I had strep B. So you know how you go through they test you whether you got strep B. Well, I tested positive for having strep B.
Yep.
And so what they wanted to do with my doctor was they said, as soon as you get it, we'll put you on antibiotics.
Yeah.
To as soon as your waters break.
Yeah.
So I went into hospital as soon as my waters broke. I didn't want to have the antibiotics, but it was kind of their policy.
Right.
Mum said, my mum did say you could probably not have the antibiotics and they'll just check you 4 hourly. Well, they checked me 4 hourly anyway, but they still insisted on the antibiotics.
Right.
Which was frustrating because I think that gave Murphy may have helped contribute towards Murphy's reflux. There's a lot of chatter about that,
Right.
Antibiotics and reflux, but and so it was all fine. Like Dave and I were like trying to play cards, and all my contractions stopped, so they were like, "Oh, we're going to put you onto some syntocinon," and I was trying to go drug free as well, because not drug free, I just didn't really want an epidural if I didn't have to. I was happy to try all the other things, thinking I could have fun.
Yeah.
Fun. It's fun, you say.
What is that? What is that? That is just such a misconception. And my mum said to me, she's like, Rachel, if you go onto syntocinon, get an epidural. And
So
I was like,
quick,
oh.
yeah.
She said, just get an epidural. She's like, syntocinon contractions are not the same as natural contractions. They feel very different. They're extremely intense.
Right.
Anyway, she goes, but ask your doctor and the midwife when they're in there, because my mum couldn't cross over the border. She'd come down to Byron Bay from the Northern Territory, but everything was shutting down. New South Wales was going to lock down. Queensland was closing the border, and we were having the baby just across the Queensland border, which is really normal for this border region. So it was pretty much the same as you, Hayley. I think ours, like, we've had the same sort of strict rules and adding in the border issues. Yeah. And so Mum said, just ask the doctor and the nurse what they said. And anyway, so I asked the midwife and the doctor. I said, Mum said the syntocinin's really intense. Should I get an epidural? And they were like, oh, we'll just take it easy on you. We'll only, up the intensity a little bit, right? Anyway, it's so effed. If anyone's listening to this who actually hasn't given birth and you're going to syntocinin drip, get an epidural, because it's synthetic. They ramp up the contractions. Everything pretty much went backwards. Like my cervix had shortened, but by the time it all started to get to the end of it, I was vomiting profusely, which I was like, oh my God, about to give birth. Shit,
Transitioning.
Transitioning. Right? So, all of that, right? And I was vomiting a lot. My cervix had actually lengthened again, and it had gone backwards, and I was nowhere near giving birth.
Oh no.
And so
shit.
Yes, and Murphy's heart rate, like yours, B, was dropping off, and they think I had a short umbilical cord as well.
Right.
So I had a midwife changeover, and it was amazing when I changed over midwives. I wouldn't say that my first midwife was the best, but my second one was amazing. And she said to me, she goes, this is really abnormal. She's like, I'm going to call your doctor in. I don't think this is normal. My other midwife, guys, was a fucking tripper. Anyway.
Well, you are in Byron Bay, babes.
Oh my God, she was such a tripper. When I told my mum, was furious when I told her about some of the stuff. Like, anyway, I won't go into it because it's not about birth trauma, and I don't have any birth trauma. I had a good experience in the end. I have a healthy baby and I'm happy. Yeah. But anyway, it all went backwards, and we went off and had a cesarean. I had a spinal block because I didn't have an epidural, which was interesting. So like they turn off my syntocinin drip, but I was still having natural contractions, right? Okay. And they were still fairly intense, but nothing like the syntocinin drip. And they were frequently, so they wheeled me down to have my cesarean, and the nurse goes, oh, the anaesthetist on today is a bit weird. So just, and I'm like,
I know.
Cool. Emergency cesarean. I'm like, oh my God, is the baby going to be okay?
Oh he was gosh, a bit why weird. Would they say that?
I know, but he was a bit weird. And
how weird are we talking? How weird on the scale of like 0 being normal and 10 being fucking weird?
10 being fucking no people skills, had no idea what it's like as a birthing woman, which is understandable. He looked like he was a 30-year-old man. Anyway, he told me to lean forward. The poor orderly intervened, or tried to intervene. He's like, can you lean forward and don't move? And I'm like, oh, I'm just having a contraction. He's like, just move forward now. And I'm contracting as he's pushing my body forward. And he's like, don't move. And I'm like, I'm having a contraction. And these tears are going down my face.
Okay, I'll sit perfectly still.
And the orderly's like, I don't think she can stay still as my body's contracting.
Oh my God.
And he was like, it was horrible. Like,
so
honestly, I was like, does this guy actually know what he's like? Does he know what a contraction is?
Did they just get him in? Was he walking past the front of the hospital?
Yeah. He actually works in the cafe. Yeah. He's the barista. This is how they go.
He's an actor. Oh
God. But no, it was all good. I got the spinal block, and Murphy came out, and I didn't know what I was having. And I was able to see it all in the reflection of the lights, which I actually thought was pretty cool.
Oh,
and wow. Dave was like not prepared for that. He wasn't even prepared for them cutting me open. He's like, holy shit. Anyway,
wow.
And they pulled out a big fat juicy baby, and it was a girl. And
And she's so cute.
Yeah, she is cute. She was born juicy and has remained so.
Love you. I love the thighs, the thigh rolls.
Oh my God.
The croissants. The croissants.
Oh my God.
She's got croissants everywhere. So
it's
yeah,
so cute.
It was not as it was meant to plan, but I'm not traumatized from it, I don't think. And you know, in the end it was actually okay, and Murphy's okay. And it's not to say that people can't have injuries and all that stuff after, but yeah, it went to a cesarean, but yeah, it was fine.
That's good. Even despite the weird guy.
Despite that guy.
Despite
I would
that
love
guy.
to put on like a contraction machine on that guy and then push him forward, but then put a watermelon in the middle and be like, sit still. While I, you know.
Yeah, while I poke this giant needle into your back.
Yeah. So anyway, but it was all okay. We got a fat little Murphy, and she's gorgeous. So.
She is gorgeous. She's super cute.
She is.
Yeah.
So listen to me. I'm just like, she is.
Yeah,
she pretend to be modest, but I'm agreeing
don't.
with you.
We all think our babies are beautiful. Okay, and they are.
Oh gosh.
Well, that's
the fourth trimester.
Yeah. We'll jump into the fourth try. How's that been?
Yeah. What's been the
cluster feeding, breastfeeding, sleeping? What's the go?
Talk to us.
So Murphy was yesterday turned 16 weeks old. So I'm just out of the fourth trimester.
Yep.
The feeding was good. Like, the hospital was really great. So we're in there for a few days helping me establish breastfeeding. And like I said to you, I was really not sure I wanted to breastfeed based on my boob size. The weight of they just got into a size where it wasn't manageable for me. Not wasn't manageable. I was worried it wasn't going to be manageable for me. But I tried, and the nurses managed to get me to feed her in a football hold. I couldn't hold her across body, and it took me a long time to get her across body because of the size of my bust and her being able to latch. So the only way I could feed her was across body. But we were actually pretty good at getting breastfeeding established. Which is probably the only reason I'm breastfeeding still, because if it had been harder for me, and that's not to say the nipple stuff didn't happen for me, like people talk about the razor blades through nipples, like that transition to having a human suckling on your boob, like for what looks so beautiful and cute is torture, actual torture, right?
Yes.
So, if I hadn't been able to establish feeding relatively quickly, I'm not sure I would have done it, and I was lucky because my mum was also at home. So, but Murphy just seemed to have a good latch. Like, I was from what I hear from other people, I think there's so much luck involved with that.
Totally.
I can't say I did anything special or anything like that. She just latched on and it worked.
I'm so glad.
She did do a loud clicking thing though, like for ages, and my sister thought it was probably the tongue ties. And we've had tongue ties fixed in our family with other kids, but my mum was like, only get tongue ties fixed, or severed, I should say, if there's a feeding problem. So, but there was a loud clicking noise, like she often made whilst feeding, but she was still getting plenty of milk. So
actually it reminded me, Zali made that noise too, and then it eventually just went away.
Murphy's eventually went away too.
Because they have to learn how to use their tongues properly, right? Like, that was the whole issue with Jude. He couldn't, I didn't know at the time, but he couldn't actually use his tongue because my nipple was going up to the roof of
and he couldn't squeeze. I
couldn't squirt. But I'm glad that you could. I'm glad that you both can squirt.
Really well.
Really, really well. 15 months of it.
We know how much our bodies change with pregnancy, but finding swimwear to fit when you're breastfeeding or post-pregnancy can be a nightmare, especially if your bust is really full. MARVELL LANE specialises in cup sizes 8D to 16H. So if you're busty, then the label is for you. They can help with their virtual or e-fittings, and they've given our lovely pumped listeners an exclusive 15% off. At the checkout, all lowercase pump 15. Now back to today's episode.
So
how was your mental health too, Rach? Because we've touched on that. I'm really intrigued to see how, because obviously it's such a harrowing and sense of overwhelm. It's that beautiful and brutal time. Polarizing ends of the spectrum. So how was that for you in the 4th trimester? How did the mental health travel?
Well, it's funny. Our GP and our obstetrician and Dave and I had me all pretty much lined up for postnatal depression.
Wow.
But expecting to get it, and I didn't get it.
Right.
But that being said, part of my issue with my depression is idleness. And when I say idleness, I don't mean sitting around doing nothing, but I mean being able to get into your own head. So part of my 4th trimester journey, and it's probably not as common with other people listening, is I had to go almost straight back to work.
Yeah.
We had to launch a lingerie line a couple of weeks after Murphy was born, and that was just because of manufacturing delays as to why that landed. That I have not had a chance to sit still to even get flat.
Yeah. So it's like you have been so distracted with everything. It's just
so distracted.
Go. Yeah.
However, if I wasn't busy, I think I definitely could have gone down that path, because I think it's in the quiet times that you're sitting by yourself and often alone that I think it can get really hard. And I have, in some ways, sadly, not had any alone time. I was very lucky because my mum was stuck because of the borders from Northern Territory. She couldn't go home. She was with me. So I was so lucky, because I hear other women doing it on their own, and I just don't even know how they did it. You know, if I was getting frustrated with, Murphy, or something wasn't working with the feed, or, the extreme tiredness, I could walk down to Mum or to Dave, because we run our business from our property, and someone could step in.
Yeah.
And we sat there a lot of the time thinking how hard it must be when you haven't got someone there to step in and take your baby off you, or if you can't settle your baby and then someone else holds your baby and she stops crying, which happens, and it's like, what did you do differently? And they're like, nothing. And you're like, oh my God.
Sometimes they can just smell your milk, or
that's another thing, isn't it? Baby's not settling for mums sometimes early on. She settles for me now, but I almost couldn't put her to sleep in the first 6 to 8 weeks, because except for nighttime, because she just would start grunting and
wanting the boobie.
wanting the boob. So mental health wise, it was okay. The sleep deprivation, like everyone tells you how tired you're going to be, and you all expect that until you experience what that is.
Oh, you can't. Honestly, Mum and I were just talking about this yesterday. I was like, Mum, because Sally's not a great sleeper, and I'm taking up to me, but I know I say it every freaking episode, but I was like, you can feel it's like a next level of tired, and the rage that can come from that. Like I said, sometimes Mum, when she's not stopped, when she doesn't go to sleep or she skips her nap, and I'm like banking on that nap for just like some time to myself.
Yeah.
If she skips it, like the other day, I was like, I can literally rip the fucking blinds off the wall right now. I'm so angry, but it's like so irrational.
Because you're
when
so
you
tired.
Sleep. Yes.
Yeah, you're just so tired. You're bone achingly tired.
Yeah, like to the point where you feel like you could throw up.
Yeah. Oh my God, B, I just want to give you a
it's hard.
God.
And then everyone's like, sleep for your mental health. I'm like,
what the hell is that? People saying sleep when your baby sleeps. I don't know. Like for some people that works,
God.
Other people, I don't know what that is. What is that?
I don't know what that is.
It doesn't work for anyone. No, it's I think we touched on it in episode 1. It's bullshit.
Have you seen that? There's a TikTok that this girl's made about that, and I'll send it to you. It's like sleep when your baby sleeps. I think we shared it on our profile. Yeah, where she's like pushing the pram and then the baby sleeps. So she's like, or in the car, and she's like, oh. Like you can't fucking sleep when the baby sleeps. And
I feel
pressure.
Totally. I mean, even when the baby sleeps, they're noisy. We booted Murphy out of our room and into her own cot at 6 weeks because she would be asleep and she'd be like,
yeah. They're like little.
And totally. And like at nighttime, like I'm sitting up, like every time she made a noise, I would sit fold upright and check in the bassinet. She's like, oh, I'm going back to sleep. And I couldn't sleep, because you're like, you're constantly waking to the every noise, because that's how your body's wired, by the way. You can try and ignore those noises, but, when you've got your hand in the bassinet, you're rocking the bassinet and the baby makes noise, so you sit up and you don't even mean to do it. It's just a normal reaction that your body has.
Yeah. Instinctual.
It is instinctual. There is just something that just makes you sit up and look at that tiny little baby, and then you're like, oh my God, you can try and get back to sleep, but you know they're going to be awake in 20 minutes anyway.
Oh, I know.
But we also, Murphy had reflux.
Yeah.
So like I was feeding and then having to keep her upright for 40 minutes after a feed.
And you're sitting there like
totally
the same. Yeah.
Yep. So, you know, sitting up and trying to stay awake just to keep your baby upright to stop the burning, and then putting him down, they might get 40 minutes down and then you go to sleep and then they're back up again, because that's the sleep cycle.
Yeah, I know. Reflux is a killer.
Reflux is cruel. Murphy grew out of hers, I would say, fairly quickly. I reckon by about week 12.
That's good. Yeah.
Because often it lasts until like 6 months. And if it's lasting longer for anyone listening, I just want to give you a big hug as well, because it's cruel. Sometimes I think, you know, you get robbed of some of the, not robbed, but it's sometimes hard to enjoy the nice moments when your baby screams in pain constantly.
And it's like a vicious cycle too, because they want the breast milk to comfort them because they got a sore tummy or a sore throat. And then you're like, but if I keep topping you up with this breast milk, you're just getting more full, and then it's going to hurt. So it's just horrible. We ended up taking Murph to the doctor for some medication that didn't necessarily work for Murphy. And then we were Losec?
Yeah, which I've taken for myself. With one of the side effects of IVF. Yay, is extreme heartburn. But instead of using Losec, we found that it wasn't working even after about 10 days. And someone mentioned to us, one of our staff, her mum's like a bit of a healer. And she said, I just use offhand. She goes, I just use slippery elm for my bad reflux. She has adult reflux. Mum and I are like, slippery elm. And anyway, Mum went and did some research, some reading, and she's like, well, we could try, you know, 1/8 of a teaspoon of this slippery elm in your breast milk 3 times a day. And we were just putting a little bit of slippery elm into a little shot glass, and I was expressing some milk into there and feeding it to Murphy. It was like magic.
No way.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we went to the community nurse and she said, how's the reflux going?
Yeah.
And I said to her, I was like, you know, we've taken her off the medication and we're just using slippery elm now. And she just smiled at me. She's like, I wish, And the thing is there's no research that's been done for anything like that. There's no one really making money off it, which I understand. So they don't really have any of the research done. But for us personally, the slippery elm was almost instantaneous.
Oh my gosh, I'm keeping that in the bank in case baby number 2 has
keep it in the bank, ladies. Hold it.
Keep it in the bank. Try the slippery elm. It's it was amazing. So and then like my mum, like even like getting her to try and take it. Like sometimes you can't even just put stuff into a syringe because the syringe just goes in the mouth and they spit it straight back out. Mum just got a teat and like the top of a bottle and sacrifice that with an extra slit through it. And she'd mix the slippery elm into the breast milk and feed it just through the teat, the top bit, and I pour
so she would suck.
And it would go straight down.
That's such good advice.
Amazing.
I was like, I'm going to make these and I'm going to sell them.
Oh my God.
And then I got busy.
but then I made lingerie.
And just
but the reflux is a bit of torture. It's
hard. It's horrible.
Because
that cry is just like breaks your heart.
It does. I mean, so, like sometimes, you know, I'd take her up one end of the house if Dave and Mum were having dinner, because we'd take it in turns with the screaming. And and you would literally be walking around an end of a house comforting a baby. You've changed their nappy, they're fed. There's literally nothing else you can do other than hold them and try and soothe them through their pain.
I know, they can scream and scream for like, I remember once she just screamed for an hour and I was just home. Zach was at work and I was just sat in my lounge room crying. It was just like this screaming, like she was in so much pain and I was like, I can't do anything. It was horrible.
God.
Yeah.
See, and this is where I know I've had luck with having, you know, Mum or us running our business from home with Dave, is having that relief. You know, there'll be so many mums just like you be who have to sit there and endure it almost alone or with no backup because you just don't have an option, and that's just how it is. So
and I like so much want to call my mum like every time, make her drive to my house every time, you know, something happened. But it's I mean, she would do it, but you know, you also don't feel like you can do that.
And it's not, and reflux isn't going to go anywhere. So like you have to learn to deal with it, right? But I totally get how hard it is, and it does feel lonely.
Yeah. It's intense. Well, when everyone else's Bobby's sleeping in the beginning.
Oh my God, I know. I was like, everyone's like, oh, I just love staring at my new baby. And I'm like, sleep deprived, have to keep her upright for 40 minutes after a feed. And she's screaming.
Yeah. Wow. Everyone's like, don't you side lie? And they just fall asleep, like side breastfeed lying down. It's like, yeah. No, because otherwise she'll vomit and like scream.
I know. So I didn't do that. I do that now. I now side feed, and that's great. But no, not in those early days.
Yeah.
No.
What about some beautiful things, Rach, that I know we've talked about a lot of the challenges, but what have been for you the most beautiful components of motherhood?
Oh God, I love it. Like it's funny. I never thought I was particularly maternal. Like I always wanted kids, but I wouldn't walk into a room and feel the need to pick up a baby. So I didn't know how I would be as a mum, but I love it. There is, and once they start smiling at you,
yes,
and like sometimes their smile is just them cocking up their nose a little bit, and there's crooked smile and a half closed eye, but they're so cute.
Yes, so true.
So like Murph's got a little wild old smile, but I love it because that recognition, or when that they want you as the mum over everyone else, even though like you want your baby to go to everyone, it's kind of nice that you're the only person that they're going to reach to wanting comfort.
Very special.
It's nice to be like that number one.
Yeah.
Like I'm your girl, you're my girl. Or if you've got a boy, Hayes. But when they reach for you or just want to lie on you, and instead of putting them into the cot, you decide to just sleep on the lounge and have them sleep on your chest. All those little things are just beautiful. And like if you even have like a bad morning, a good afternoon like eradicates that immediately, or a smile eradicates. I was going to say,
the smile. That's why they
immediately takes away that's why they're so cute and loving is even if you've had the roughest of rough nights, or they've woken up 3 times, if you see them in the morning and they like still thrilled to see you.
It all goes away. I know, it's true. All the tiredness and everything, you're like, oh, it's okay, love you.
I know, that's how I feel. Like Murphy's just had her 3rd night of sleeping through, or what we'd call sleeping through.
Wow.
Oh my God,
amazing.
What is that?
It's a game changer. Nice.
Like 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, maybe, who knows, it's all a blur, but I was like, oh God, how good is 4 hours of sleep in a row?
That's me now.
Oh God, B, sorry. I feel bad saying this, but like,
oh my God, don't even.
Go from like the newborn stage after 6 weeks or 4 to 6 weeks, when they're sort of like waking like it's a 3-hour cycle. Sometimes less. And then all of a sudden you're getting 4 hours of sleep, or maybe an occasional 5 hours of sleep. That's so lovely to start getting that.
We got 7 one time, and maybe around the it might have been like the 5-6 month mark, and she was mostly we had some nights being like 7 or 8 hours, and I was like,
that's incredible.
But look, it's not forever. That's what I'm telling myself.
This too shall pass.
This too shall pass.
I know. Well, that's like when Murph slept through the other night. I think she went to bed at like 8:30, and like she normally goes to bed early, but we had a late night, so she went to bed at 8:30 and didn't wake up till 5, and it was 5:05 or something. Actually, she hadn't woken up. I opened my eyes and I could see that the sky was light, and I went, oh,
did you panic?
Oh my God. Yes, I knew I hadn't fed. I hit my phone to check the time, walked in there. And then she was still, because she's always been a tummy sleeper, Murph. That's the other thing, new mums, like, that's actually a big thing. I'm just going to leave my story. She was just sleeping through. Woke up
Glad to hear it, right?
But Murphy was a tummy sleeper from
the start.
My gosh, how did you deal with that? How were you shitting yourself? Were you flipping her over like a pancake?
Actually, it's funny. Like I was actually really nervous, and again, lucky because my mum was there, because everything you read tells you your baby will die if it sleeps on its tummy. Like it's going to smother. They can't look after themselves. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So that's what I had in my head, and it became very obvious early on that Murphy would sleep flat on my chest, but as soon as I put her on her back, she'd wake up.
And she didn't lose. For
That's
sure.
the reflux, but it's also she didn't lose her startle reflex until I would say even a couple of weeks ago. She was still startling herself awake. So if she was on her back, she'd be awake straight away. Yeah,
her little arms would flail.
But we come from a family of tummy sleepers, and this is not advice, people, so please go and get your own, advice. But Mum said, just trial her on her tummy, place her down, make sure her head's on the side, take everything else away from her, and she should be fine. Because she's, and the other thing is babies' noses are designed to move. So, if they squash down in the same way they're feeding with you, even if Mum's like, your boob will not smother her, Rachel. Even if it looks like it's going to smother her, her little nose will move and she'll still be able to get air through. She goes, that's how babies' noses are designed. So it'll be fine. Right. So I was paranoid, Hayley. I thought she was going, like, I would wake up and definitely have a baby who wasn't going to be alive if I put her on her tummy. And I do know that it can be dangerous. But it was the only way she slept. And then we put her on her back and trial it again. She'd be awake. We'd put her on her tummy. She'd sleep. And it became so obvious. And Mum said, it's okay, Rachel. Like, just make sure you set up a safe sleep area. Yeah. She'll be fine on her tummy. And she's only ever slept on her tummy.
Wow. Well, before, so we were side sleepers. We were told, our mums were told to sleep on our side. And then I think before, like, my cousin who's like 35, it was like tummy sleeping was the thing.
Yeah.
Ever changing, right? The rules and the regulations.
It is ever changing. And also, I think the other thing is with Australia, we are particular. We are very rules oriented.
Yeah, we are.
And, to the point where, particularly for women and mothers, there's so much advice that comes left, right, and centre that you want to follow all the advice. But a lot of advice is best practice. It doesn't mean it's the only way to do things. And, and sure, sleeping your baby on their back is the safest thing that you can do. But if you're sleeping on your baby on their back to the, detriment of the baby, even not getting a proper sleep, then you can try side sleeping or tummy sleeping and it may be okay. So I don't know if you guys are ever going to get like a sleep specialist on who might be able to talk about that, or whether they aren't, even once they get certified for doing things, whether they're even allowed to advise to put a baby.
Yeah.
This is the other thing with breastfeeding, or hospitals, not putting people to formula, steering them away. Mum said their certification.
They can't.
Yeah. So she said it's really terrible. She said because they try to stick within the bounds of being certified to give advice about something, but that's because they have to dance to the rules of the body who's certified them.
Yeah,
which is so awful because it's at what cost, and that's where a mum's mental health is imperative, right? And if that's not
1000%,
it's just that's why we started this podcast, really.
Yeah.
So
share stories. That's right.
Yeah. That's why I'm glad, Hayley, that, you really straight up just, I can't believe how long you persevered with pumping. That's why I said to you, I was like, how did you cope with that?
Because fuck pumping.
The pumping, and for how long, I had another friend who her baby was bottle fed, but exclusively breast milk for 3 months.
Wow.
And like you, Hayley, and like 10 out of 10 for persevering. But when I saw her, she was a shell of a human.
Yeah. Well, I know there's a mum, the Pilates instructor at Body Love Studios in Wallara, and her and I got talking about how hard pumping is, and she said she pumped for 8 months.
Whoa.
I know. And I burst into tears. I was just like,
oh my God.
Yeah. I was like, yeah. So they're
around the clock for eight months.
So women that are doing that, we see you and we hear you, and it's amazing. It's like, I don't know how, but hats off.
It's also it's amazing they do it, but it's also okay if you don't, because that is a grueling schedule to keep up.
Oh,
yeah.
So
not everyone can do that. Like, I wouldn't be able to do that held to the no.
No. So 10 out of 10 if you can, but also 10 out of 10 if you can't.
Yeah.
You move to another method of feeding your baby.
Yeah, totally. Look, I wanted to, if touched on our feeding. So breastfeeding is good now. Like you're breastfeeding.
Yeah, I'm still like, I mean, my boobs are huge. So I'd love to stop because, I almost don't fit my lingerie or my swim. I definitely don't fit my lingerie. And I almost don't fit my swimwear. Even though I specialize in big booby lingerie and swimwear, that's how big mine have gotten. So I didn't think I was going to breastfeed for long, but it's really lovely and I'm really loving it. And I had to get a carer in for Murphy fairly early on because I had to go back to work. So 4 days a week, I have a nanny from 9 till 1 so I can try and smash my workout uninterrupted. Sometimes I still work in the afternoons, but I try not to, but I'm not always successful. So for me, I feel like I really want to continue the breastfeeding to make up almost for that time that I spend working to really maintain that connection. Yeah, I love it.
And has it all like it's all your milk's regulated now? Like, are you experiencing any more engorgement or anything, or is it kind of like
no, my engorgement settled down pretty quickly. They just stayed engorged. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I'm like
constantly engorged.
Everyone's gonna go on your page to like look at your boobs now after this.
Totally. Come on, check them out. No, they remained big, but no more engorgement. And I've been lucky. I staved off a case of mastitis.
That's good.
And the only reason I knew what it was is because my mum's like, "What's your other symptoms?" And I was getting the shivers. I was feeling cold. My muscles were aching. She's like, and then I was like, and I've got one big boob that's hot. And mum was like,
oh no.
So I just pumped like nobody's business, took some Panadol and kept pumping, using the pump as well as feeding Murphy. But if my mum hadn't have been there, I reckon it could have progressed to full-on mastitis. So I'm so glad it didn't. But no, it's all regulating. I do top-up feeds with formula because sometimes I just don't always get the bottle pumped for the nanny to give her. And I had to pop down to Sydney last weekend to film something, and it was a really last minute thing, and I didn't have enough breast milk in the freezer because I hate pumping. And she went from having formula every second or third day as a top up to give me a chance to having, I think, maybe 2 or 3 bottles within a 24-hour period. And when I flew back, I was only gone for just over 24 hours because my flight was cancelled. I was like, oh my God, my boobs are huge. I was pumping. Anyway, I couldn't believe, I was like, please don't cancel my flight, freaking Jetstar. So
for my boobs.
I was like, my boobs.
Why doesn't anyone care?
I know.
You can't let the boobs explode.
I know, right? That's like when I was filming this thing, I was wearing this beautiful dress and I was so paranoid I was going to leak through this dress on this set.
No.
I was like, keep an eye out. And I pumped, I stayed at a hotel just across from where we were filming because I was like, I emptied my boobs with the pump. I was like, I should be fine. And I was fine along the neckline. By the time I had finished filming, they had to do like to camera, like a Vox thing. My boob was bursting over the top of my dress, like it was starting to cut in, and I was like, hang in there.
It's so bizarre, isn't it? It's like literally you watch them expand in real time, like
literally. And I was like, please don't start leaking. Please don't start leaking. And I was like, can I go first on the interviews, please, guys? Because I was just like,
oh, right.
Don't worry,
like,
Rach, soon they'll be like mine and you go,
oh God.
No, I hope they're not.
No, they will be. Like, you wait. I know.
Can you tie them in a knot and can you tie them in a bow? We'll touch back with you in
sister, you can skip rope with mine. So
Wow, I've got this vision of a bit like maybe that could be a new performance art, like UOW reunite, and like we can all, I can get the pump out, you can skip, and Bianca can do knots and bows.
Please do it. Yes, let's do that. Yeah, and I think the other thing with formula was her having the formula in the 24-hour period, like having more. I came back and she had a big rash all over her body. And it was the only thing I could think of. And we have intolerance in our family for dairy. I have it in my cup of tea every day, but don't eat a lot. So then I had to hunt around town for
goat's milk,
dairy.
Yeah.
Well, I went to the doctor, excuse me, and I said, should I use goat's milk? And my nephews have had the it's the protein that they're allergic to anyway.
Yes, that's intense.
We had the same thing with the goat's milk as well.
Right.
So I just hunted around to try and find a soy or a plant-based option, which, by the way, can I just say to pharmacies, Woolworths, everywhere, I don't know why they're not stocking more soy options with formula, because lactose intolerance is really common, and goat's milk is not always a good option. This doctor, who also had a toddler, he said it didn't work for us either. So if you can find something soy-based or plant-based, try it.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I always see like online, like these big mums groups that I'm part of, like everyone's always like, I'm trying to hunt down this like certain brand of formula because my baby's intolerant to XYZ and I can't find it anywhere, and like they're getting it from other mums who are like, I've got a spare tin or whatever, which is so stressful if you are running low on what your baby can have. Like, what do you do? So
I asked, that's what I did, I asked the WhatsApp group. I was like, guys, she's got a rash all over, I think it's this, I can't find this at Woolworths. Woolworths doesn't have soy. Where can I get it? They told me all the stores had sold out. And then I eventually found stuff in the town over, as we do. Otherwise, it's ordering online. So I hope more, you know,
big supermarkets or whatever.
Supermarkets or pharmacies get on to having something other than dairy, like cow's milk or goat's milk options. Just having one other there that's not animal derived for those kids that are struggling.
Speaking of your WhatsApp, is that your mum's group?
Yes, I hover in there.
When you have time.
Is that your village, Rach? Obviously you've got your mum, which is amazing.
My mum's back in the Northern Territory now, but no, I sadly haven't been able to make a single mothers group. It makes me really sad because I'm working, and I did twice right into the mothers group being like, hey guys, I work but I'm free on a Saturday, anyone want to, you know, have a coffee and a play date? Crickets each time. And I was like, all right. So I haven't asked again, and I think, you know, as my mum said, she's like, oh, they're probably, you know, having time with their partners on a weekend. And
it's hard in this climate too. Everyone's a bit fear mongered, and
it's a real shame because, you know, I would love to meet other new mums in this area. I've got friends obviously who've all got kids, but I do sometimes get a bit sad that I might miss making a new mum friend at that stage because I'm working so much. But MARVELL Lane's just at a critical stage of growth that I can't step out of my business at present. So someone jokingly said I could have maternity leave when she's 4, and I just about cried.
Well, what would you say to any mum then, Rachie, that is kind of, you know, doing a similar, like running, you know, they've had to go back to work? What would you say in terms of encouragement and advice to them to get through the mayhem that is, you know, the juggling act of that?
So it became apparent quite quickly that I couldn't juggle. No circus call out for me. One of the things we did too was getting a carer or a nanny for Murphy, just so I could actually smash out my work, because I was trying to, and even like today, trying to oscillate between the two and get the work done is one thing, but it's just not possible holding a child or a baby. Like, hats off to parents who have had to try homeschool and work, because what the hell is that? But I can't do it with Murphy, so I've had to get a carer to help me smash out my work, so that when I have my time with her, it's just Mum and Murphy, you know, having fun together, trying to, or she can watch me hang out my washing, because that's the reality. Or battle the caterpillars in my garden.
In that picture you put up on you when she's looking on in the front.
She's like, wrap this up, Mum. Come on.
So cute. A little judgmental face.
Take your 4 shitty tomatoes back inside.
So cute. Well, what other than your gardening, like, so that's your new project I'm seeing on the side that you're doing? Do you do anything else? Like, do you go for a walk, or do you go for a swim, or what's your time?
My time. So I do make a point of getting exercise in. Sometimes that's with Murphy. I like to do the lighthouse walk with Murph in the carrier, and that also gives her a chance. Like, I do it in the afternoon because I work in the mornings. She gets a really good 1 hour sleep in the afternoon in the carrier because it's a long walk.
That's great. Yeah,
I love it. It's like doing the lighthouse with an 8-kilogram kettlebell. Like, she's probably heavier, but I haven't weighed her in ages. She's a little 10-ton Tessie. She's gorgeous. And then if I'm not doing that, then I try and get to Pilates, and then Dave and I just make sure one of us is free. Well, that he's free, so Murphy can be looked after while we get. So exercise is going back to mental health, non-negotiable for me. And I really rely upon the endorphins. because I notice after 2 days of no exercise, I start to go downhill rapidly.
Yeah.
So,
oh my gosh, I relate so hard to this.
yeah. So it doesn't have to be go and kill yourself with exercise and get really pumped up. It's just getting outside, getting a brisk walk in, getting your podcast in and going, you know?
Yeah.
Because you've just been at the lighthouse listening to Pumped, haven't you, Dal? Like every walk, it's just been pumping with Pumped.
I have been pumping with Pumped. I was listening to another woman you interviewed who had big boobs, and I was just nodding my head, walking on, going, I feel you, sister. Like, and she's like, and then I shrunk down to my small 10F, and I'm like, I'm hoping to shrink that down to my AG.
There's hope. There's hope.
There is hope.
There's hope.
Oh.
Oh gosh. Anyway.
J is for juggling. But you can't do that. So you said you couldn't, no, circus.
So
No
I
circus.
paid someone to help me.
And I guess one final question, because you've covered so much, like honestly,
You have.
We could talk to you for 2 hours, but we don't want to hold you up forever because you have to get back to work. Your business is going nutso. Busy. Have you had moments where you've just felt like pulling the pin? Have you just been like not pulling the pin in the regards to like, have you just like, you want to run away from work and you've had overwhelm? Because I guess when you have a baby, your heart, it's like this chamber unlocks inside of you, and it's this, or your heart feels like it's on the outside of you. Have you had moments of overwhelm where you've been like, okay, but like work is hectic today, where you just feel like you want to get it, like
constantly.
Constantly.
Actually constantly. It's hard because obviously MARVELL Lane's a passion of mine and it's running on its own, and so anything I say is not to take away from MARVELL Lane, but absolutely, like I sit here going, I just want to be with my baby. I just want to do that, and I haven't been able to do that because of circumstance, right? So constantly is the answer, Hayley. That I do feel I'm overwhelmed. And then after my mum left, it was my husband's birthday. MARVELL Lane was crazy. We'd had a crazy week. I could not, like, we were working more than we had care hours for. Mum had left. We had the property, everything, and we also then had people over for a barbecue, and I said I didn't want to do that because I didn't have time to do that. So we'd worked, like, we had a little baby, and I felt like a husk of a human on the inside, and I wanted it all to go away then. Like, I hosted, had people around, and that night cried and cried and cried because I was like, this is horrible and not how it's supposed to be. Like, it's too much. Like, full-time work, baby, demands, feeling like you can't be a partner to your partner, but you're like, I need to triple myself at the moment.
I know that feeling is just trying to be there for every single person in your life. It's impossible.
Totally.
I just feel like it just shouldn't. I read like so many things and see so many like poems and beautiful things on Instagram about it, and how like in that first year, especially like you and your husband, it's like this or your partner, it's just this unspoken kind of thing that that you're there for each other, but like you may not feel like you are, and your baby's coming first, and you probably have guilt about trying to split your time, but like we eventually come back together. Like, it's not going to be like that forever. It's like and they become the person that they kind of become like your punching bag, and like they're there for all of those outbursts and mood swings, but it can all just compound sometimes, and I totally get that. Like, I'm just
also
get in the car
getting your
go.
partner to and they're like, oh, but what about me? And it's like, I'm doing everything with a fucking smile on my face, and I'm dead on the inside. Like, I have nothing.
What about you?
You've got nothing. And that's
I'm depleted.
You can't be
not
everything for everyone.
And that's the thing. But it sounds like your time management is amazing, and I guess it in terms
sorry, Dave would laugh if you
really
say that.
Sorry, well,
I just create cyclones everywhere I go, but anyway, carry on.
Well, I love that because I'm the same. So my partner would high five Dave. They would. They could
I was going to say, from the outside, it looks like you have everything together. So, and if that counts for anything.
My nanny quit this morning. I drove to town. I'm sitting out the front of someone's house. Good internet, just so I can chat with you.
Oh, well,
it's a mess. Like,
we're so thankful, Rach. And I guess, well, can you quickly just tell us one of what's your favorite Marvel Lane item at the moment? What is your favorite, most prized item that is just the go-to?
Well, there's a swim top that I'm launching this weekend that I've been wearing for a few months now that I can finally tell people about. It's my go-to, the Sasha bikini top, because I can tie it up and it fits my boobs. Yay. But my other go-to is actually my Evie bra that I can't fit, but I'm launching it in a J cup in January, and I have a sample in a J cup, and I'm just like, woohoo, this is amazing.
That's
finally.
Love
so I feel seen by my own business that I've now got a bra I can wear.
That's what you got to do. What you got to do, you know. If you have to start your own company to get the thing that you need
and
totally
love that it's J for January.
Yay! J for January, J for J cup, J for juggling.
Oh, we have to ask you before you go. We need to know the 3 words that sum up motherhood for you, because we ask all our mums this, and I love it. 3 words, if you can put it into 3 words.
Oh gosh, chaos is one. Oh god, chaos, beautiful. You know when you have something that you don't know if there's a word for it?
Yes, I feel
yeah, it's like heart clenching happiness. You know, like your heart just clenches because it's so happy.
Overwhelm
is a good one as well, but it's just like, oh, that's the word. Oh, I love it. It's so beautiful. You know?
We know what you mean. Yeah,
it can be a sound. I love
that's the sound. It's I love this baby. That sound.
Like you want to bite their face off. You love them so much.
I kiss my daughter too much. I'm like, can you kiss your baby too much? I'm like, no,
you cannot.
All day, every day. And poor Murphy, she loves it, but like, I'm like, oh God. Anyway,
I love
I'm just conscious of time, girls. Sorry, I've kept you up. Well,
oh my gosh, no,
we've kept you, so we'll switch off. And
thank you so much, Rachel.
Thanks for having us. Do you want to just quickly say a bye, and then you can stay on and we'll say a proper goodbye, but we'll say a bye to the podcast crew. So thanks for listening, everyone. Check out Marvel Lane. Check it out if you haven't. Check out Rachel's boobs. Check out
check out her boobs, even if you don't have.
Just come and have a squiz.
Come and have a squiz. Busty women, get on to Marvel Lane if you haven't already.
Oh God.
Let's all say bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Okay.